I'll go ahead and let you introduce and everything. So I hit the go live button. It looks like we're live. Hey, Margaret. How have you been? Oh, just been very, very busy. Have a lot of different things going on, and yeah, looking forward. This has been the first time I've spoken for IGT in a few years now. It's been far too long. So there's no sound. Okay. Hmm, let's see. Maybe that works a little better. Oh, let me see here. Yeah, because I can hear everything. So they're saying they don't hear you. Huh. Well, yeah. Let's see. So they hear me, but not you. Yeah, I see the output. I see. Let's see. When I speak, it goes up. Go ahead and speak again, Margaret. You're not hearing it on there either. Do you hear me? You hear me, but not you. Okay. Let's see. Let's try that. Any good there? Okay, that'll be a little awkward, but okay, we can do that. So yeah, not so. All right, let me. So you just want me to go ahead and start? All right, I guess we'll go ahead and do this. Hi, everybody. Mike Ricksecker here. I don't know who all is down in the chat, but I probably know some of you. And I can't because this is a little different because usually when I'm at an IGT meeting, I see all these familiar faces, and I see Margaret. First time I've had a chance to talk to Margaret in a long, long time. So I'm really happy about this. Uh, yeah, and I hear some feedback coming from you, Margaret, actually, which is, I guess, okay because they can't hear it. All right. Yeah, every time you speak, I don't see any. I don't see any volume coming out. So I'm not sure what the deal is. So I guess whenever they have questions, just go ahead and feed me the questions, and let me turn on the. Uh, I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I need to switch this to the different mode here. Okay, so it's on speaker view, and it shows you. Okay, but we need it on me. There we go. And let me turn it to There we go. Okay. The shadow people presentation. Okay. Well, it's been a little while since I've actually done this presentation. I haven't presented in over a year because of COVID. You were going to be talking about shadow entities this evening. A lot of my work for my new book, A Walk in the Shadows, uh, is is from this presentation, and I got a lot of stories to share. Some of them actually happened in Maryland as well. So, the big question, of course, is who or what are these things? And I'll start with, however, how I really first got into talking about shadow entities, and that was with my own experience. This was several years ago when I was about 8 years old. Woke up in the middle of the night and I saw this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my bedroom. This is an artist representation of that. Adam Tillery did a fantastic job. Of course, I had no idea at the time it was a shadow person or shadow being, and you're supposed to call it certain terms or whatever. I just thought that there was an intruder in the house and it was about to kill me because that's about what you think at that age. But of course, I'm still alive to tell the tale. It did something very unusual, however. It approached my bed, leaned over. I'm trying to scream. Nothing's coming out of my mouth because I'm just too frightened at that time. And it grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and then it ran off down the hall and into a closet. By that time, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom. And they're being nice parents, trying to console me and all that, and telling me that I just had a bad dream. But I knew I hadn't had a bad dream. I was awake the whole time. This thing physically touched me. So this was really my first introduction uh, to shadow people. And a few years later, that was just the first one. Now, I wouldn't ever call that a haunted house. That was just kind of a one-time incident. Never happened again. Didn't really have any other hauntings or anything like that going on within that house. Now, about 5 years later, moved to another house that was in Massachusetts. We moved to Ohio, and in this new house, I was putting things away, unpacking boxes, that sort of thing as we were just moving in. And I kept seeing this figure standing in the doorway to my bedroom. And I'd turn and look, and the thing would take off down the hall, usually toward my parents' bedroom. And this happened a number of times. I'd just be unpacking, putting something away, and it would take off down the hall. And so after this happened for a few days, I ended up asking my mother about it. I just kind of broke down. I was like, okay, let me see what she says. And I guess maybe she thought that I was a little more mature by that time. I was a teenager now, not an 8 year old. And she told me that she had seen this same thing. And she wasn't alarmed by it or anything like that. She was just kind of very nonchalant, very matter of fact. Oh yeah, I've seen the same thing, which was great. It was a nice affirmation for me that I wasn't crazy, and the fact that she wasn't alarmed about it, kind of gave me that reassurance that this thing wasn't dangerous. So I got playful with it and started calling it Tom, like peeping Tom. And so anytime after that I would see him, I'd turn and look and say, "Hey, Tom," and he'd take off down the hall. It's a little bit different than the first shadow entity that I had seen because this one was a bit more translucent um, and a bit quicker than the first one. The first one was fast, but this one was even faster with the way it would take off. And that activity lasted for about 3 or 4 months, kind of subsided, and then never really saw it again after that. So I just chalked it up to something that was there at the house. It was curious about who the new family was, and once it deemed that we were okay, it just kind of went about its business. So a little bit different that than that first incident. What's that, Margaret? Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah, I don't see him yet. So, oh, okay. Well, if Rob comes in, I'll pop him in there. So, all right. So continuing on. So we're going to get into like different types of shadow figures, and then who or what these things may be. So the first type that we'll talk about are humanoid figures, and yep, and there's Rob. So let me admit Rob, and Rob is joining. So hello, Rob. How's it going? Yeah, good to see you too. Let me. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we're still not. Yeah, I don't see any volume on Rob either. I'm gonna try something else over here with this, a different method of doing the audio. So sorry, everybody who's watching this. I'm gonna try something here and see if we can take out the earbuds. I don't know if maybe the wireless is messing around with it. Okay, and let me see. Why don't one of you guys say something here? Can you guys still hear me? Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to change the input here. Okay. Okay. Now I gotcha. Go ahead and say something again, Rob. I still don't think it's coming through. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's still not. Try that. Okay, try again. Yeah, I see no levels on the audio going out from you guys. I don't know why that is. Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. Nope. Yeah, there's no volume there whatsoever. Oh yeah, we got the Haunted Road roast. Yep. And yeah, still nothing. All right, we can keep going. Yeah, because there's I've tried all kinds of different things over here, and it's still just not. Nope. Okay, so I guess just kick me the questions whenever you guys get those. All right. Okay, Rob has a question. Hmm. That's a good question. So Rob's question is because I had seen one in the house in Massachusetts, and then I saw another in the house in Ohio. If they knew that I could sense them, um, and that's a great question because something that I have been talking about uh, a bit more lately. That's actually not in this presentation. It's kind of in my bigger workshop that I did back in the fall, and that's I talk about personal resonance, where some people are more apt to see shadows, where some people see more apparitions, and so I'm one of those that happens to see more shadows and apparitions than others, or vice versa. And I think that is because of our own, personal resonance, our own personal vibration. And I think once you start seeing one more often, or start interacting with one more often, you kind of become in tune to that. Now, if was that the case in Ohio, when I moved in? I mean, it's possible. I'd only had the one interaction, at least that I can remember, with that one in Massachusetts. So was that enough for it to know? Was I kind of like we talk about like with psychic mediums that they're like a beacon that the spirits can see. Would that be the same for these shadow entities? I suppose it might be a possibility. That's a really good question, Rob. So I really wish I could get the audio through here with you guys. Kind of all right. So let's. What's that? Yeah. So all right. So I guess I will continue on with the presentation. Okay. Let me get back to the PowerPoint here. All right. So humanoid figures. These are generally the more the most common type of humanoid figures, at least from the research that I've done and the reports that I've collected over the years. And this would be essentially what I saw when I was a child in Massachusetts. That was your basic humanoid figure. Has no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no features. Adam kind of drew it there with a little bit of a face, but generally you don't see those type of features. There are ones that have a couple features, like maybe glowing eyes. We'll talk about those here coming up soon. But this is the most common type, and I do have a interesting uh, capture of one. This was at the Campbellsville Grade School, Campbellsville, Illinois, and that shadow you can see the arrow pointing at it there. This is in the gym of an old school, and behind the shadow is a set of double doors, and we had a lot of interaction back and forth in this gym where we would hear a number of things over by the doors. We would get EVPs and things like that, but the noises were coming like from beyond the doors, like the boys' locker room that was back there or down the stairs into the basement. And then once we were over there investigating, we'd start hearing noises over by the bleachers, which is where this snapshot is from. And then we'd go over there, we'd do some more investigating, and then we'd hear the noises back over by that door again. So it was back and forth, very playful. This is actually a still from a video clip. I was panning the camera back and forth, and in the actual video clip, you can see the shadow kind of walking a little bit. And so we didn't actually see it with our eyes because I had the backlight from the camera and everything that I was actually looking into. But upon review later on, we got this fantastic capture, and we went back there, kind of did a height comparison to see about how tall this thing would be, and it was about the height of a 10-year-old child. So it makes sense being at a school that it would be a child, really like I said, about 10 or 11 years old. So can't confirm it though because we didn't get any EVPs that said yes, I'm a 10-year-old child or anything like that. And now the Archaeological Society's taken over the building, so can't get back in there anyway. Mm-hmm. We're getting to that, but I guess I can answer the question for now. So the question is, are shadow people interdimensional beings, not human spirits? So I, I have an entire section on that, but I'll say this just to answer the question right now. Shadow people are a lot of different things. What I believe a kind of quote unquote true shadow person is yes, a interdimensional being. However, there are shadows that we see and witness that are human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition, and so they only come off as a shadow. And I have some stories about that later. In fact, Rob, and really, Rob, I would love to get the audio working here for you guys because you have your story that I'd love for you to share. And then, some may be extraterrestrials, some may be time travelers. There's a lot of different possibilities as to what these are. That we try, I guess, as humans to kind of compartmentalize everything, but really it's kind of a vast array of different things that we're dealing with that come off as a shadowy form for a variety of different reasons. So, okay. Moving on. So that's the humanoid figure. Then there is the hat man, the hat wearing entities. These are kind of a mixed bag here. A number of people report these things being like energy vampires, where they'll come into the room, strike fear into a person, and feed off of that fear. And that very well could be the case for some of these different things. Others are kind of like what the human shadow figures do. For the most part, even though I had a physical interaction with one, for the most part they just kind of stand there and watch and observe and don't really do anything. And there are a number of reports with hat wearing entities that also just stand there and watch and observe. There are others that we'll get into this when we get into kind of the extraterrestrial bit, that actually may be some sort of extraterrestrial being. And then some people will relate it to Men in Black and things like that. So we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth here in a little while. But yeah, these are kind of chalked up to a little bit more nefarious type of entities. Then there's the hooded figure. Again, a bit of a mixed bag, but I've had a number of stories where these things are actually more benevolent in nature. This particular drawing here by Adam Tillery, this was a hooded figure that was at an abandoned abbey in Ireland, and in this particular case, he actually reached out and saved. I mean, some of you probably know Cat Gash. Actually, reached out and saved Cat Gash from falling down the stairs. And this is one that wouldn't have been a like true shadow figure, like the interdimensional being. This one would have been more of the human spirit, obviously a monk being there at the abbey. Another interesting tale with these is a woman who kept seeing a hooded shadow figure in her house that kept going into her son's bedroom. Now, her son was very sick and had an illness that he was trying to battle as a young child. And it was they thought it was one specific illness, and they were trying to treat for that, but he kept getting sicker and sicker. And so she thought that this hooded figure was basically like a harbinger of death. And so this one time they were back at the doctor's office, and they were just going to run the same tests over again. But then all of a sudden the doctor turned his head as if somebody was whispering something into his ear. And he turned back to the family and said, let's try these other tests. And they tried these other tests and discovered that the boy actually had something else. It wasn't the original diagnosis. They came up with another diagnosis, which is actually what the illness was, and they were able to treat that. So she never saw this hooded figure again, and believed that even though she didn't see the shadow in the office, she believed that the spirit or energy or whatever of this being was there in that office and is the one that whispered into the doctor's ear. And so that one was more benevolent in nature. And then you hear of some that, kind of come into the bed at night and lift them up by their feet off the bed. I've heard that one about hooded figures as well. So again, kind of a mix. Then there's the mist. So this one here, it basically is like a black cloud. Forms up. This is an illustration in a bedroom of a house we investigated in Edmond, Oklahoma, 11 years ago now. It seems hard to believe it was that long ago. But this was for a case that we filmed for The Haunted. That was the Monster in the Closet episode. And there are a number of things that happened within that case. I'm going to get into one of those stories here in a little bit with the red-eyed entity. But this particular one was a mist that formed up in the bedroom, and it was preceded by Jasmine the cat kind of going crazy. She was very, very skittish, running around the house, and of course, we took notice of that. And we're trying to follow her around a little bit. You can kind of see on the right-hand side, that's me off to the side there, trying to figure out what in the world's going on with the cat. And she stopped right in front of the door to this bedroom, and then she just slinked around that chair. She wanted nothing to do with the bedroom, because when you looked in the bedroom, this is what you saw. You saw this mist that was forming up. Um, I tried taking some photos of it, and nothing actually came out because I basically used a flash and obliterated the thing, unfortunately. But um, but yeah, it was the air kind of started getting heavy a little bit. The question always ended up becoming, okay, is this thing actually going to form into the entity that the girl kept seeing in the bedroom? Of course, we weren't able to confirm that, but that's basically what the mist is. That it's this cloud, and basically it just dissipated away. As would basically like steam. So it's kind of like dark steam, really. Then there's the entity with the red eyes, so shadow figures with red eyes. And this is what she was actually dealing with in her bedroom. The other members of the household had seen it as well. This was an adult daughter, not a child. And so this thing was appearing in her closet, other areas of the house, was terrorizing her, was terrorizing the cat. And so we ended up being called out to cleanse the house and push this thing out, which is what a big part of that episode is about. That Monster in the Closet episode on the haunted. And again, some of these, this is generally considered a more nefarious type of shadow entity, but some also just kind of stand there and stare as well. There's another story of this woman. She was working on her computer in the living room, got up to go to the kitchen, and noticed that there was this dark figure with red eyes looking through the bay window to her living room. Wasn't doing anything, was just standing there. She'd walk a little bit closer to the kitchen, she'd turn and look, and it was still there. She did that like 4 times, and then the thing finally disappeared. But the ones with red eyes are normally considered a little bit more nefarious. They have a number of different colored eyes. It's not just the red. You hear stories about yellow, purple, uh, even blue. So, but red eyes are generally the more popular. Then there's the wisp, and the wisp is kind of like what I was seeing in my bedroom when I was moving into that house in Ohio. That uh, I turned, look, and this thing would take off. It was translucent. It was very fast. Sometimes you don't get too much of a form out of these. They might just be almost like the smoke, but there is a little form. Like the story I'm about to tell. Johnny V's in Muskogee, Oklahoma. We're doing an investigation. A couple of guys are up in the bar area. Some others are out in the main restaurant area, just really kind of finishing up. I decided to do a last photo sweep of the restaurant. I walk in through the main door to the kitchen and saw this just wisp of a shadow. It was tall, very thin. It was very translucent, but saw enough of it dart across the room. It was very, very fast, and then boom, slammed into the door that you see there in the photo. It was just a very flimsy metal door, just something for waiters and waitresses to carry large trays of food through. You could like tap the thing and it would move. I'm going to get into a little bit here shortly as to the significance of that, but yeah, that would be what we called the wisp, and uh, I had the audio clip there isn't going to play, so I won't get into that. But we'll get into more of the particulars of this one a little bit later. Then there's the crawler. The crawler is basically as its namesake is. It crawls along the ceiling, crawls along the walls. It kind of get down into a crab position and crawl along the floor. The illustration here, or this photo here, I just grabbed this off the internet some time ago, and I am not sure if this thing is supposed to be real or what have you, but it's close to something that I've seen before. And this was at Blackbird Church out in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. We were in the basement area of the church, which is the photo on the left-hand side. Now, this place had legends, urban legends of this crawler being there. And we'd investigated out there several times, had never encountered it, had all kinds of other things go on. But one particular night, we actually did encounter this thing. Slipped in through one of the windows and started circling us. And you didn't really see a whole lot. It was kind of like a flurry of just like very long arms, long legs. Um, it was very fast along the walls, the ceiling. You can kind of see, how well you can see it, but there's a little green bottle there on the floor. At some point, it hit the floor, kicked that thing across the floor, hit a railing at one point. Again, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Our audio recorders are picking up all kinds of static while this is going on. The medium that we were with suggested, well, why don't we like sing some hymns, say some prayers, create a positive energy, and push this thing out. So that's what we did, and we were able to get the thing out of there. But yeah, kind of back to the other slide. This thing, if you can imagine that thing there in the basement church area there, that's essentially what we saw. Then there is the old hag. And the old hag comes into play when we start talking about sleep paralysis. The old hag will appear on somebody's chest, like in the middle of the night. You wake up, you see this thing sitting on you, either as a like a creepy old woman. You see kind of like the ghoul or the incubus sitting on the person's chest. Sometimes it will actually be standing in the room, and you'll still have the sleep paralysis aspect of it. And we're going to get into sleep paralysis here in just a moment, because that's a topic that's really prevalent when we start talking about shadow phenomena. But some people will see it as just a shadowy form over somebody. And one interesting story that I encountered was a woman that it wasn't the old woman, it wasn't the old woman, it wasn't the old hag, it wasn't the ghoul. It was actually a direwolf that was sitting on her chest. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this thing that was on her. She's trying to scream and thrash around and all that to get the thing off. Woke up her husband. Her husband did not see the wolf, but what he saw was the impression of the paw prints on her shoulders. And so, he's trying to help his wife. He turned on the light, and then, the thing was gone. So that was one of the more bizarre cases. But what I find interesting about this, and I have a much bigger section on the history of shadow entities in my book, A Walk in the Shadows, and in like the workshop and everything that I do. But because the legends of whether it's old hag syndrome or shadow entities goes all the way back into ancient times, like ancient Sumer, ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt believed in 7 different parts of the soul, one of those being the Kabit. The Kabit and the Ka, which is the animating part of the soul, stayed here on Earth to roam around, while the other 5 parts went off to the constellation of Orion. You have some similar stories from some, not all, because they all have their own their different legends. But like the Choctaw Native American tribe here, they have 2 different parts of the soul. They have the inside shadow and the outside shadow. One goes off to the land of the ghosts upon death, and the other stays around here to roam around. And you see this in legends from around the world. These are World Night Hag legends. So you see Fiji, Kanatavoro, eaten by a demon. Thailand, Siam, witch riding. Vietnam, Bong Day, held down by shadow. Turkey, Karabasan, the dark presser. So basically all describing the same thing. They each have their own, stories that surround it. They all call it a different thing. But you can see where we get some of our different terminology from. Gullah lore, hag-ridden. That's a term that we used to use a long time ago when somebody would wake up and look, disheveled or like almost like they had a hangover or whatever. They woke up looking hag-ridden. This is where we get those terms from. So I find that very, very interesting that all of these cultures from all over the world who had no contact with each other for long, long periods of time all had these same types of stories about shadow entities and the old hag. So I said we were going to talk about sleep paralysis because uh, this is something that's reported quite often with shadow phenomenon. Not all the time, and really like out of all the shadows that I've seen, which are quite a few over all the years of investigating and a couple times as a child, the only one that was ever involved with sleep was that first one. All the other times I was up walking around, like the one I'm putting things away in my bedroom. I was completely awake for that. Out on paranormal investigations, I'm completely awake. So this is the only one involving sleep was that first one. But a lot of people do wake up in the middle of the night and they see some sort of shadow standing in their room, and they are experiencing sleep paralysis as well, and they become very frightened and believe that the shadow entity or the old hag or whatever it is that they're witnessing is the one that is giving them the sleep paralysis. Now, the medical community tries to say that, well, what's going on is that, well, for one, sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. That is absolutely a fact. Your body, when you go to sleep, will purposely paralyze itself so that you don't act out your dreams while you're sleeping. And I've actually experienced real sleep paralysis twice. It was actually the reverse of that, not when I was waking, but I actually just kind of accidentally fell asleep a couple times and all of a sudden couldn't move. Like my brain was still awake. I was still cognizant of everything that was going on around me, but my body was so exhausted that it turned off, which was very frightening, especially the first time that it happened. And so in that situation, what I ended up doing after some time was figuring out, okay, let me try to wiggle a toe. And then I wiggled a toe, and then let me try another, and wiggle another. And let me see if I can wiggle my foot, and did that. And then I kind of slowly worked up my body until I ended up waking up my brain finally. And then I was okay. So sleep paralysis is a real thing. It does happen. But the medical community likes to say that, well, what's happening, when you're seeing these things at night is, you're still in a sleep state, that you're still dreaming, and what you're seeing when you wake up and you're experiencing sleep paralysis, if you see a shadow entity, is that it is part of your dream, that you're hallucinating this thing. And what I have a major problem with that is we dream about all kinds of different things. Yeah, sure, there are people in our dreams, but we dream about planes flying overhead, or there might be cars or motorcycles in our dream, trees, all kinds of, I mean, just pick a scenery. There could be a bridge or whatever. I've had dreams of being on stage with Motley Crue, and I've never woken up to 10,000 people in my bedroom, pyrotechnics going off and the drum kit and the guitars and all that. I mean, that would be fun, but that doesn't happen. And neither do we wake up to, bridges and trees and airplanes and things like that in our room. When people wake up and see these things and they're experiencing sleep paralysis and see something, it's always the figure of a person. So here's what I believe is going on. I know this has been a bit of a long story or a long explanation, but here's what I believe is going on. Okay, sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. Shadow people are a real supernatural phenomenon, and they can happen at the same time. Now, anybody who has had children can relate to this. The child wakes up in the middle of the night, they need something. They need to go to the bathroom, they had a bad dream, they need to drink of water, whatever it is. They come into the bedroom. Sometimes they don't always, tap you on the shoulder or shake you awake or whatever. Sometimes they just stand there at the side of the bed and stare at you. My son Cameron was notorious for that. He would stand next to the bed and he would just, stare at me until finally I woke up and I look up and go, "Oh, Cameron, what are you doing?" And he would tell me, whatever whatever it was. I need a drink of water, need to use the restroom, whatever. And so, okay, let's go do that. But the question is then, what is it that woke me up? Why was I like, oh, Cameron, you're there? Well, I felt his presence. I felt his energy. We each have what's known as a toroidal energy field around us. It extends out for several feet. So what I was feeling lying there in bed, even though he didn't touch me, is I felt his energy, his presence there. And that is what woke me up. So what's going on when we're waking up and these shadow entities are there is we're feeling their presence. We're feeling their energy field intersect with ours. And that's what's waking us up. When we wake up, like, oh my gosh, there's a shadow in the room. And sometimes when you wake up, especially in a situation like that where something is forcibly waking you up like that, just by feeling their energy, sometimes you're still in that sleep paralysis state. So it's not that the entities giving you sleep paralysis, is that it's a natural biological phenomenon, and you're experiencing that, seeing the shadow entity. It might not even click at first that it's a shadow person or whatever. First inclination is probably there's an intruder in the house. There's an intruder in my room, which naturally puts you into a state of panic, a state of fright. You want to do something about it, but oh my gosh, I can't move. I have sleep paralysis. So two different things occurring at the same time, and that's where this relationship comes into play. So long explanation, but there you go. All right. So then always comes the question, are they evil? This was a thumbnail that I used for a YouTube video. Are they evil? Because, yeah, there are some people out there that believe that, all shadow people are evil. They're the darkest of the dark, the most evil of all evil entities, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, that's just simply not the case. Yes, there are some that are evil. And this is going to sound very simplistic, but this is the way that I like to put it. Some human people are good, some human people are bad. Same with shadow people. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. It just really depends on the agenda of the particular shadow person. I've already given a couple of examples where they've been actually benevolent and they've helped out. Most times they're just rather benign. They're not really doing anything but standing there and watching and observing, which can be certainly disconcerting, especially in situations in which, like waking up in the middle of the night and it's standing there looking at you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's doing anything other than kind of invasion of privacy, invasion of space, that sort of thing. And then there are some, and you cannot tell me that this little girl is evil. So shadow people as human spirits. Rob has a fantastic story in my book, A Walk in the Shadows, about his aunt appearing to him as a shadow. And you're not going to tell me that Rob's aunt is evil because she appeared as a shadow. That's just simply not the case. And I really thank Rob for submitting that. And he also included one on shadow pets here for the second edition. So thank you, Rob, for that as well. This little girl, and Rob is, and here we go again with Rob. Rob has actually sent this little girl at Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois. Fantastic, fantastic location. I highly encourage you guys to get out there. And I'd always heard the stories about this little girl being there, and had never really not witnessed her. Maybe we got a couple of EVPs in this room that she's supposed to be in, but really not a whole lot. Well, one particular night, almost 2 years ago now, following the Haunted Road Media Paracon, the Paracon's just winding down, a handful of us left, and we were in that upstairs abandoned part of the hotel doing an investigation in the room known as Pearl's Room. It's a room with a confirmed suicide. We've got a lot of interaction there. Hosting a paranormal investigation, you take people to the what you consider to be a more active room. So we're doing an EVP session in Pearl's Room, which is kind of in the corner suite there. But from down the hall, you start hearing all these noises. Okay, what's going on down there? I'm going to walk out into the hallway, looking down the hall, and I start seeing this black smoke, like the black cloud, that black mist that we were talking about earlier at the end of the hall. And it starts coming forward. And as it's coming forward, toward me, the thing starts creeping up the wall on the right hand side of the hall. And then it would creep back down. It would creep back up and then back down. And it's doing this as it's coming, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Well, finally, one time as it creeps up that wall on the right hand side, it actually morphs into the apparition of this little girl. And everybody else was out there with me by then. And there were 5 of us that actually saw this little girl. And we're trying to coax her closer and coax her closer. And she stopped right at the door to the room that she is usually reported to be seen and where people interact with her at. We couldn't get her any closer than that. Um, what's interesting is, the question kind of came up earlier about being able to see shadows from Rob. Great question. Um, and I talked about personal resonance. What's interesting is we all saw her a little bit of a different way. So I saw her fully formed from her head all the way down to about her knees, and then she faded away. Where others saw her basically fully formed from her feet up toward her head, and then she faded away around the head. Others just kind of saw her torso. We all agreed she was wearing some sort of dress or nightgown or something like that. Um, and so that kind of adheres to the idea that we all have our own personal resonance, our own personal vibration. So do these spirits, these different entities. They have their own personal resonance too. And so because of that, she's emanating a certain vibration. We are picking up on that with our own frequency. We're all a little different, and so we were able to see her all a little bit of a different way. But we all did see her. But here's a human spirit morphing out of a shadow, and certainly a little girl like that is not going to be evil. Coyote Chris Sutton is said a number of times he thinks that she's just waiting, like she's waiting for her father, looking out the window, waiting for somebody to come pick her up, which is very sad, actually. Yeah, sure. Okay. We were. So Rob is saying that he feels that she was showing herself more to people she trusts more. And, and if I felt that that was the case. I mean, it very well could be. I mean, we'd been up there many, many times before. We were always very respectful when we were up there, even though we didn't really get a whole lot of interaction with her before that time. We were still very respectful in that room trying to when we tried to visit her. And yeah, I mean, I think, seemed to be fairly trustworthy of us at that point. Even though she didn't come any closer than that door, she still lingered about for a long time, just kind of looking at us and us looking at her. She didn't get scared or run off or anything like that. I mean, she lingered there for quite a while before she faded away. Yeah, yeah. Rob's saying that's a lot of trust for her to stay there that long. So yeah, I agree. So, yeah, and you wrote a bigger piece on her in what was it, Encounters with the Paranormal Volume 4, I think. Yeah, yeah, sure. Rob's asking if I've ever felt a temperature change in the presence of a shadow being. When I've seen them, that's a good question. When I've seen them, I haven't really paid attention to the temperature. So, not something memorable. That night with the little girl, it was a hot, sweltering night, and I don't recall feeling any coolness. Um, like the first one when I was a child, people asked me like what it felt like when it touched me. It didn't feel any different than anybody else touching me. So people wondered, did it feel icy cold? Did it feel electric? And it didn't feel either of those. Just felt like anybody else touching me. The other shadows that I've seen, like in various paranormal investigations, what have you. I mean, I will feel an energy sometimes, like maybe there'll be a heaviness suddenly, or it might be a little tingle in the air like that. Um, and yeah, the tingle though is more for I don't necessarily have to see anything though when I feel that tingle. Like I might walk into a room and be like, oh, something's here, because I'm kind of feeling that almost like a spidey sense, feeling that little bit of tingle or what have you. But yeah, I don't really remember temperature changes though, at least not in those cases. Yeah, they're definitely energy beings. So, Rob's asking if feeling the tingle would be like feeling energy, and yeah, that's exactly what I believe that I'm feeling. I'm feeling their energy in those moments. Sometimes they'll hit me like a wave, and almost get like a cobwebby feel over my face or something like that. And it's not necessarily just with shadow beings. It's like for almost any type of spirit or some sort of supernatural being that's in the area. A lot of times I'll start getting that tingle. So I'm sensing their energy for sure. Cool. All right. Good questions, Rob. All right. Let's yeah. I'm sorry. I have just a couple more slides. Yep. Yep. So, oh, wrong one. There we go. So that's that. So, okay. So I'll get the question: are shadow people aliens? Are they extraterrestrials? And some of them, I do believe are. There's a couple different ways that they could be doing this. One, we talk about, and we're going to talk about interdimensional travel here in just a moment. And if a more intelligent life form has mastered the ability to travel the cosmos interdimensionally, then some of these, what we're calling interdimensional beings, could very possibly be extraterrestrials. Uh, there's also the possibility that, if we're talking about something that's physical and there's a craft out there, orbiting the Earth or whatever, and they send somebody down here um, to watch and observe and study and things like that, that they may try to use some sort of cloaking device to disguise themselves, but not fully understanding the physiology of our eyes. That cloaking device may come off as like a shadow, or some people talk about like seeing a shimmer man, that sort of thing. Also, uh, there have been reports, kind of like the early reports of what people would call like Men in Black or things like that. Albert K. Bender, he started the International Flying Saucer Bureau back in the early 1950s and was basically scared off of it after a little bit over a year by what he reported as three hat wearing, shadowy entities that materialized into his room. They had these glowing eyes, and just his whole description was basically, what we would call, the Hat Man. Now, um, a lot of people within the UFO community chalk them up to the Men in Black. Albert K. Bender actually believed that they were extraterrestrials, and he had more than one interaction with them. And some of the information that they related to him seemed to be on that level. But his whole description of these shadowy men with the, wearing the hats and all that, it was very, very much like the hat wearing shadow entities that we talk about all the time. So some of these uh, hat men that end up in people's bedrooms or at other locations that people see, they could actually be ETs and not what we would consider shadow entities at all. So interdimensional beings. This is what I think a shadow person, a true shadow person, really is that they are some sort of interdimensional being crossing over into our plane of existence from their own plane of existence, or even kind of like I said with the ETs traveling across the cosmos. And this is the main reason why I believe this, because I mentioned earlier that wisp that I saw at Johnny V's in Muskogee, Oklahoma. That was the one at the restaurant. And in that case, okay, what exactly happened? When I walked into the kitchen and saw that wisp dart across the room, I heard the slam of the door, but the door didn't move. And I'd called out to the others. hey, did you guys hear that? And they're like, yeah, we heard that. I described to them what had happened. They were in different areas of the restaurant. For a moment, I thought, okay, these guys are messing with me. Maybe they threw something at the door. And I'm even asking them, hey, did you guys throw something at the door? No. I went through that little door. And I'm looking around on the ground looking for something. No, they didn't throw anything at the door. And even if they had, that door is so flimsy that anything hitting that door would have made the thing move. But it didn't move. So what happened? Okay, this is what I believe happened. That I walked into that room and this entity, this interdimensional being on another plane of existence, when I walked into that room, perhaps it saw me as the shadow, perhaps it saw me as a ghost, however it saw me, I scared it because that thing took off across that room, and perhaps on its plane of existence, it blew right through that door, and that door opened, and it ran off into the dining room area. But I didn't see that, of course, because we're in two different dimensions, two different planes of existence. However, the sound of it, sound works on a different wavelength, a different frequency. And so I was able to hear it cross dimensions like that with just the sound, but I couldn't actually see it because physically it was on a different plane of existence. And so that is what really, and that was about 10 years ago now, but that was really set me down the path of looking into these things as interdimensional beings. And that's what I think a true shadow person really is. So, and without further ado, that is the end of the presentation. Let me change our view back here. All right. You guys still there? All right. That was it. Yeah, I just had those last couple slides. Okay. Hey, welcome back, Rob. hmm Okay. Sure. So Rob is just saying that he appreciates me explaining about interdimensional beings. He's a believer of the multiverse and that sort of stuff. So, okay. Okay. Terry has two questions. Okay. So the question is, have I ever seen bright flashes of light where spirit goes through portals? Um, and do I have an explanation for that? So, okay. I mean, I've seen bright flashes of light, but it doesn't always coincide with some of the different things that I've seen. Like there at Johnny V's, I obviously saw something interdimensional. Didn't necessarily see the bright flashes of light. Um, some people have seen those. Do they always coincide with portals? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. When we talk about portals, we're talking about that vortex energy, the magnetic energy from the Earth's core that wells up and spawns off the different portals and supernatural activity and things like that. So, like with this particular one, there was definitely some sort of crossing of dimensions. I've been to, well, okay. I just came out with the Shadow Dimension docu-series, and we're at the Conjuring House, which many believe that there is some sort of portal there, and I do believe that. You don't necessarily see the bright flashes of light, but a lot of strange things happen there. I do believe it's powered from the way the basement is built, because you have an open well, you have a water source, you have limestone walls, and then you have granite that kind of caps those limestone walls. So you're kind of building, a power source right there, and just straight up from there, people have experienced. People have experienced shadow activity, shadow smoke. Both Andrea Perrin and Carl Johnson have seen that. There time slips have happened there where people have seen, all of a sudden, apparitions from another point in time, but those apparitions turn and look at, living human beings as if they're the ghosts. So you're actually having these time slips and things like that happen there. So not necessarily bright flashes of light, but you're having this strange activity happen there. And for the shadow dimension, on the top floor, basically right above all this, energy that's welling up. I got extremely lightheaded right there while I was in the middle of interviewing Keith Johnson, and then later on, Carl and I had a number of things happen up there, but the most significant thing was this photograph that I had taken of which is really bizarre. It's basically like a phase shift that you're seeing of the rooms. So what's interesting about this house is so old that the wall between two bedrooms actually has a window because it used to be the exterior wall. And you kind of see that window, the wall next to it, and the door kind of shifting a little bit. But then when you're looking through the doorway, there's an exterior window in the other room that's basically behind this piece of wall between the interior window and the door. So you should not see that exterior window at all. But that exterior window is actually shifted to the right side, and you see it against the wall in the other room. And so it's like really bizarre. You're looking at that. How in the world did a window that you should not be able to see get shifted into another part of the room? It's kind of crazy, but that's the type of those are the types of things that you'll capture in these locations that have, that vortex energy and spawning off these portals and all of that stuff. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so Rob is asking, or he's basically saying IGT is doing crossing overs, and they're seeing the white light when they're crossing uh, people over. Have ever seen something similar with shadow entities? Um, so that's a good question. Now, when we did, 'cause I haven't done a lot of that in some years now. But when we did that cleansing at that house in Edmond, Oklahoma, that had the shadow entity with the red eyes, and basically that mist that we didn't know if it was forming up into the entity with red eyes or what have you. When we pushed that thing out of the house and we got into the backyard, we were trying to get out of the backyard. It wasn't light, but it was wind that started swirling around us. And when we finally completed everything, the wind just stopped like that. And we ended up mentioning that about the wind to the family who were off in the side yard. And we're like, oh, that wind was really crazy, wasn't it? And they were like, what wind? They had no idea about any wind. But so yeah, it wasn't light, but it was wind. So another type of element. The question is, when was the last time I saw a shadow figure? That would be the little girl. That was almost 2 years ago now. So, I mean, I do see quite a few of them, but it's not like every day or anything like that. So yeah, she was the last one. She also would have been. He's asking, what about an apparition? She would also be the last one. I mean, I'll see stuff, like maybe again, kind of like little flashes of light, or what? Actually, what is kind of interesting is I did see. I don't even know if I can chalk it up to a shadow entity, but it was this weird kind of fluttering. It was. It almost looked like the birds that were outside were inside, which was kind of bizarre. Um, but yeah, again, like I kind of said earlier, I see more shadows than apparitions, and so they're kind of few and far between for me. The little girl is kind of like shadow and apparition, and that she was, the last significant one that I saw like that. People see things out of the corner of their eyes, and there's reason for that because the way our eyes are with the rods and cones and all of that. Yeah, but she was kind of like the last real significant one on both sides. So the question is, did I have any pets growing up and see pet shadows? So I had a dog until I was about 7 or 8 or something like that. And unfortunately, she had to be put down. Um, I don't recall seeing her after that. But yeah, I'm Rob. I love your stories about the shadow pets, and I'll get questions about that stuff, all the time, and if they're real. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Hmm. Nice. Yeah, yeah. The little shadow girl was a 2-for-1 deal, right? So the statement that the flutter could be the overlap of dimensions. I mean, it could be something like that, or even almost like, uh, if we're talking phase shift earlier, if somehow the because we have the bird feeders and everything out back here, and so there's always birds around there. If something kind of shifted, and all of a sudden I saw the birds inside for a split second, because something just kind of temporarily shifted. So it's kind of an interesting concept to think about. Okay, so the question is, do shadow people either do they lie beside you? This is from Sheila. If they lie beside you and wrap their arms around you so they can't move or speak. So this kind of goes into sleep paralysis that I was talking about earlier. That would be like another form of it. People will report. Usually, it's they're sitting on their chest and they can't move. But I've heard that before, where they're lying beside you. The same things happening, or they might even be standing up and you're experiencing that. But I guess refer to my earlier discussion about sleep paralysis. But that's kind of all the same thing. So the question is, am I writing a follow up to it? So I did just come out with the second edition with to this book, and there it is, Walk in the Shadows, and that's where Rob expanded the part, and he has the older one, he has the first one. Rob expanded the Shadow Pet section on that. There's like 40 extra pages to that in additional material information. And I love the artwork for the cover. They did a great job with that. Um, so the Shadow Dimension docuseries, which was just released, you can find it right now on Vimeo and Zuzu, and then I guess later Quasum. It's going to be on other platforms and kind of slowly rolling it out. That is kind of like my follow up to the book. It's where we're going to places like the Conjuring House, Mineral Springs Hotel, and we're actually actively searching for this phenomenon and seeing if we can interact with this, seeing if we can discover more of the secrets of this. So there's not really a like Walk in the Shadows Part Two. That's really what the Shadow Dimension docuseries serves as. The writing projects that I'm working on right now, there's uh, a book on the Alaska Triangle, which was the television show I was on last year. There's a second season coming out for that, by the way. And then there's a book I'm doing on the connected universe. So, and there will be a lot of, kind of this type of information from this book into that, but or in the connected universe book, but on like a deeper level. We'll be getting into a lot more with the idea of interdimensional beings, the multiverse, stuff like that in that book. Yeah. You can find me primarily, my website, mikericksecker.com. Um, there's the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, over 700 videos out there right now. So if you want, shadow person specific stuff, there's a whole playlist out there on shadow people. The Shadow Dimension docuseries, you can watch the trailer and the extended preview on the website shadowdimension.com, and you can find the actual series. There's 6 episodes to it on like I said before, on Vimeo, Zuzu, which is actually a Canadian streaming service, which you can get the channel on like Roku, iOS, Amazon Fire TV, all that. And there are other platforms that have picked it up and will be releasing it here soon. And then also for like the deeper dive, you can go to connecteduniverseportal.com, and that's where they'll be coming out here soon. I'm going to be hosting different courses and things like that out there. But there's like a whole membership side with like sneak peeks, behind the scenes stuff, monthly Q&A videos, articles, all that great stuff. Yeah, yeah. Edge of the Rabbit Hole, which is the podcast and live stream show, which is the Edge of the Rabbit Hole channel, airs Tuesday nights, 9:30 p.m. Our next guest is Terry Lovelace. He'll be discussing the Devil's Den incidents. Yeah, Rob will be back. Yeah, we've had Rob on a bunch of times. So you were just on what was it, about 2 months ago. So definitely go out there and watch all the videos we have with Rob. Yeah, it's always a good conversation. Yeah, yeah. So Rob's asking about the Encounters with the Paranormal book series. So this is a series of 4 books, which they're not just stories from me. They're stories from people from all over. I mean, I'm one person. I've had my experiences, and so this includes experiences. If you can't relate to me, you could relate to somebody else in that book, because there's such a large variety of different experiences that people have had, and so I think it does a great job of helping people realize that they're not alone. Other people have experienced these things too. You're not crazy. So, kind of, I think it really helps facilitate the conversation. And the great thing about the last 3 books is that part of the proceeds go to help those haunted locations that are featured on the covers. Yes, they're all on Amazon. Okay, so the question is from Victoria. She was at a haunted B&B and saw the fluttering. Was wondering if it was like the energy, like energy fluttering. I mean, it very well could be. It could be almost. There's a variety of different things it could be. So I mean, it could be energy. It could be some sort of crossing of dimensions right there. Maybe almost like a little tear in the fabric of space time that you're actually seeing and witnessing. Hard to know without actually being in the room there as well. But I think you're on the right track. That's fun. Thank you. I appreciate that, Rob. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Join us Tuesday night, and for the Beyond the Shadows, which is Wednesday. You have to go through the Connected Universe portal to get to that now. But you can always listen to all the audio podcasts later on. So like Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that great stuff. So yep. Hmm. Am I wor- am I working on another book? Oh, the Chase. Yeah, Rob's asking me about my mystery series, the Chase Michael DeBarlo series. He really liked those. Yeah. Um, I got about halfway through the third book several years ago and haven't gotten back to it. I tried picking it up in a different fashion. Like Adam Tillery and I had a joint project that we were working on together. We did like little webisodes. You're getting little story snippets there and we did that for maybe 5 months or whatever. And then I got super busy with other stuff that I was into, and so that kind of fell by the wayside. So that was, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a mystery series. So he's a private investigator. The first book, Deadly Heirs, he's investigating. He's been hired to find the lost last will and testament of a billionaire who supposedly drowned in his swimming pool. The second one, System of the Dead, he's investigating the death of this genius computer software designer who built this revolutionary operating system that all of a sudden, on the verge of him releasing this operating system, he was found strung up in from the tree in his front yard. So there, I, that was kind of like the first thing that I started writing when I was a kid was little mystery stories. I wrote some little ghost stories too, and if you can believe it, historic fiction from a 7-year old. but um, but yeah, those are always fun for me. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Margaret. Absolutely appreciate it. And Margaret, it's been so long. It's great to see you. Yeah, yeah. Margaret and Rob are saying goodbye. I know I have to. it's uh, the technology, right? Absolutely. We'll catch you later. Rob, Margaret, it's always a pleasure. Take care. Good night.